Good evening. The Rancho Public Schools Board of Education meeting for Monday, September 25th is now called to order. We would like to start off our meeting tonight. We'd like to invite our Cleveland High School Concert Choir up to the front. As they're coming up, we'd like to welcome their director, Ms. Flam from Cleveland High School. As they're coming up, if all would please arise, we're going to give our Pledge of Allegiance, and it will be led tonight by Jessica Tyler. Following the pledge, we will have the national anthem performed by our Cleveland High School Concert Choir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. That was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. We always love having students in the boardroom, and even better when all the parents come in too. And so we just have this beautiful full boardroom. So thank you so much, Cleveland High School, for coming out and presenting the national anthem to us tonight, performing, I should say. JC, can you do a roll call for us?
Board President Galbraith?
Present.
Vice President Morgan?
Present.
Secretary Scott?
Present.
Board Member Tripp?
Present.
Board Member Tyler? We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. And once again, we want to say thank you to our Cleveland Concert Choir. I'm going to turn our time over to Dr. Visu Cleveland for some opening comments.
Good evening. And again, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here this evening. And again, it was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We also have some additional information to share with you this evening regarding the choir. Okay, well, prior to the meeting this evening, the audit committee met. Audit activities are beginning for the 2020, have begun for the 2022-2023 school year. And the audit is being conducted by Accounting and Financial Solution, which is an independent and certified public accounting firm. And we met in executive session. The chairman of that is Noreen Scott. And that information is private until the audit is complete. And then it goes to the state auditor, and then it comes back and is made available to the public and the community. We have some commendations. Certainly the Cleveland High School Concert Choir is here this evening, and they have been selected as the 2024 New Mexico Music Educators Association All-State Honor Choir. And so we congratulate all of the members of the choir as well as the director. The director is Jadera Flam, And she will be introduced by Executive Director for Fine Arts, Dr. Kurt Schmidt. And Dr. Schmidt will share some additional information with the board and community regarding this really very special acknowledgement of all of their hard work and their many accomplishments and their talent. As you heard, this choir perform the national anthem at the beginning of the meeting, and we're just really pleased that they are here in attendance this evening. Okay, we have another important piece of business, and that is we had a bond sale, and the results of that sale will be discussed with the board. Kaylee Weimer-Kirsch with RBC Capital Markets will be reporting on the September 14th bond sale. We are really pleased with the results, and Mr. Harrigan, who is often here, is not able to be here this evening, but we're very pleased to have Kaylee here, and she will provide the board with information regarding process and outcome of the sale. The board did receive a very detailed report, municipal bond market update, and pre-pricing overview. They had an opportunity to review prior to this evening. The net effective interest rate was 3.891516%. And really, that's great news when considering the current market conditions that we're in right now. Certainly, climbing interest rates, as well as rising construction and equipment costs, are reducing the funds that we actually have available for our current facilities projects. And so we're really very happy and very relieved to see this rate for the sale. We have some upcoming surveys that we want you to be aware of. This information will be presented by Dr. Happy Miller, who is, of course, our Executive Director of Research Assessment, Data, and Accountability. She will share with you information regarding the surveys that will be distributed to our students, staff, and families for this school year. Surveys really serve a very useful purpose in providing one avenue for obtaining feedback and information from our instructional programs and student safety and well-being. And we really encourage, whether you're students or parents or staff, that you provide us that input, because it drives a lot of the thinking and the work that the board does. And so we really do encourage people to take the time and fill those surveys out. They are also used to monitor our strategic planning results, and they certainly drive our planning efforts for all of our programs in the district. So you will be hearing about some surveys. There's some changes in the surveys, and particularly one of them in particular is now will be required by the state, by the public ed department, and we want you to be aware of that particular survey. You have asked for an update on the CTE building and program, and so Patrick Martinez, our Executive Director of Facilities, and Dr. Christopher Johnson, who is, of course, the principal of CTE, will be providing you with an update this evening. Dr. Johnson will share some information regarding our current CTE offerings that our students are currently engaged in this school year. And then Patrick Martinez will address information on the progress that's actually being made on the CTE building or facility. And there's just a couple of pictures of our kids currently right now in the program, and I think that's really great to see that they are hard at work and that these programs are already underway. We have a MOU, Memo of Understanding, between NDI New Mexico and Rio Rancho Public Schools. And NDI is the National Dance Institute, and this is a national organization. There's also a local New Mexico chapter. This MOU is a wonderful example of how partnerships can really enrich the lives and the educational opportunities of all of our students. This particular program will be offered in 4 of our elementary schools and is geared for students in grades 3 through 5. This proposed memo of understanding will be presented by Dr. Kurt Schmidt and Jesse Du Bois, who is the Albuquerque Outreach Artistic Director for NDI New Mexico. And we are so appreciative of this wonderful opportunity. The students that will be served this year are Puesta del Sol and Colinas del Norte, and they will be receiving these services this fall. And then in the spring, it will be Sandia Vista and Maggie Cordova. There's a couple of pictures of our kids, and it is a wonderful program, and we are grateful for this partnership. Love to see it grow. It just provides so many neat opportunities. We know a lot about movement and the value that that does for kids mentally and socially and physically. And so it's a great opportunity, and we do very much appreciate the partnership. We have a couple of other items for the board: a request for proposal and an invitation to bid. The board will be asked to consider approval of ITB number 2024-001 for the facilities department, and this will be for moving services and materials. And then the second is for the Rio Rancho Public Schools area-wide network. Both of these items will be presented by Michael Madrid, Director of Purchasing and Chief Procurement Officer. And then we've had some additional questions, and so Scott Leppelman will be prepared to answer some questions that the board members have asked, and Patrick Martinez is also available for any questions that you might have on either of these items. And then in executive session, the board will be considering a motion to convene in closed session. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property. Specifically, the superintendent informs the board about potential property transaction as provided under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. And so these are one of the things where we can go in and discuss initially in the executive session, so as not to alter the conditions of the sale, which I think makes a lot of sense. The board will reconvene at the end of the closed session. No further agenda items are on our agenda for this evening, so the board will take no further action on these items this evening. So sometimes we've had people stay and think the board's going to come out, and sometimes they do if that item is on the agenda and they're to vote on it, but there is no planned actions for this evening. Any actions, though, any discussions in a executive session, eventually the board does come out and take action in public, so the public is aware of the item. So that is this evening as well. And that's all I have. And if you have any questions or comments or anything that you would like addressed on those comments.
Thank you. I think any questions?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay. So we'll move on with our agenda for tonight. So first is to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Board Member Gary Tripp, I'll second.
We have a motion by Jeff Morgan and a second by Gary Tripp. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And we did not receive any public comment for the evening. We have two different ways we can receive that public comment, either here in person in the boardroom or through our public comment form. And so we encourage our public to come out, and if you have things that you would like to talk to us about, to come and sign up for public comment. So we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the commendation for the Cleveland High School Concert Choir for the selection as the 2024 New Mexico Music Educators Association All-State Honor Choir. This is directed by Ms. Flam, and we would like to invite Kurt Schmidt to come up, who's our Executive Director of Fine Arts.
Just trying to get them all up here. So
That's good.
just right here.
You're welcome to come in front of us. It's totally fine.
Come on around so everyone can be seen.
Everyone can see you.
Makes for a good picture.
Yeah.
President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland, tonight I present to you for commendation the Cleveland High School Concert Choir and their magnificent director, Ms. Yadira Flam. You had the pleasure of hearing a few of their members sing the national anthem tonight. This stellar ensemble has been chosen as the 2024 New Mexico Music Educators Association All-State Honor Choir, and as such, they will perform a concert in January at the annual All-State Conference at UNM. The concert choir was chosen from among several choirs across the state and truly represents the best of the best. In many ways, the selection of the concert choir is no surprise given its track record. The choir consistently earns first division ratings at the annual music performance assessments and always impresses audiences during their concerts. It is also no surprise that Ms. Flam has led the choir to this honor. Ms. Flam has been with RRPS for 19 years, was the NMMEA New and Emerging Teacher of the Year in 2011, and was selected as the NMMEA Music Educator of the Year in 2022. She is truly a great asset to Rio Rancho Public Schools. And I would like to invite her up to the podium. I warned her that she might have to say a few words, so she wants to come up and say a few things.
Thank you for the honor. It is such an honor to be here, and this commendation means a lot to me and to my students, and I am very proud of them. They just lead me through everything day by day, and they sing their hearts out, and it's truly because of them that we're here and that the program thrives. And also because of their parents, they support the program, and we really appreciate all the support that we get from them. In addition to that, I want to thank Rio Rancho Public Schools, the board members, Dr. Schmidt, Dr. Cleveland, for all of the support in the fine arts. It really does make a difference. And the advocacy that you provide for our programs makes a difference in these students. And for many of them, it provides an outlet, a place where they can be creative. There's lots of great leadership opportunities for them, and they thrive in them. And so this program means a lot to them. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Do we want to take a picture? Vice President Morgan was saying we can do a picture. Yeah. You guys want to stand? We'll do a picture with them. Someone take it.
I'll just stand closer to you.
Okay.
Excuse the pick.
Come in just here. Like this. Right, Tippy to it. Is that good? Should we come closer?
Schmidt?
I don't know if anyone can really see me. I'm so small. I'm going to come closer to Noreen.
Okay. Do you want to switch places? Why don't you switch places with me? Yeah, there we go.
All right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, here at Rio Rancho Public Schools, we have really good sport programs, but what makes me so happy, because it's so equally important, is we have really good fine arts programs. And so when we see things like this and being recognized, and our wonderful teachers being recognized, and our students being recognized, we know that we're making sure that everyone is receiving that opportunity, whatever they're into, that they have that opportunity. And I hope that's something that we can continue here at Rio Rancho Public Schools, to support all of our programs and recognize that all of our students need a place. And sometimes that's, you know, with the cross country team or the football team, and some of that's with singing or being up on the stage and acting. And so thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Dr. Lewin, do you want to add anything?
I think you pretty much said it. We've said over and over, our fine arts programs are one of the crown jewels of the school district. And we are very proud of your accomplishments and your hard work. And it's wonderful to see that recognized by your peers across the state and university folks as well. And it is not easy to get this recognition. It's really very difficult to get it. And so again, congratulations to all of you for what a wonderful accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else from the board? Gary Tripp?
I just want to say congratulations for being the cream of the crop in the whole state of New Mexico. You're the best of the best. Enjoy it and sing your hearts out and show the world how great you are this year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to add, this is a prime example of there's a reward for hard work. I know it's not easy, but the time you put in, the effort you put in, this is to say thank you. So whether it's singing here and whatever you decide to do in your life, just always remember there's a reward for hard work. Just put the time in and it'll pay off for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Music brings joy to so many people. Thank you for bringing joy.
Thank you so much.
She literally took the words out of my mouth. But it's so nice. I mean, we say the pledge every week or every meeting, but it's so nice to have you all here to sing our national anthem. And it just, brings about a sense of pride for our nation, pride for our school district and our community. And so again, thank you for bringing that joy and your beautiful voices to share with us, and congratulations on your achievements.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And before I go into our next item, I'm just going to give about 1 minute. If anyone wants to, you are welcome to stay. We love for you to stay. But if there are things you need to do, you're also welcome to go. So we'll just give you a moment if you'd like to leave you that you're able. Thank you all.
But do come back.
And we're happy for you to stay, but I know lives are busy.
The place emptied out.
Aw. All right. That was sweet and wonderful. So thank you. We'll go ahead and move to our next portion, which will be our reports for the evening. Our first report is the 2023 bond sale results. And so Kaylee Weimer-Skirch is here with RBC Capital Markets to discuss this with us. Kaylee, did I butcher your name as they just...
Got it, perfect.
You're being nice.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Kaylee Weimer-Skirch with RBC Capital Markets, your municipal advisor. I'm here on behalf of Eric Harrigan, who is not able to make it tonight. So tonight is just an informational item. It's not an action item. I'll be moving at a high level and pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, feel free to pause me at any point. So on my first slide here, we just have a brief transaction summary. So the district picked R.W. Baird as the underwriter for these bonds ahead of time through a competitive RFP process. We entered the market on September 14th to sell $10 million for the district. The true interest cost came in at about 3.8% with an all-in TIC of 4.2%. Total interest came in a little bit above $1.4 million for a total repayment of this $10 million issuance to be $11,477,000. These bonds are callable, and they will be callable starting on August. Entered the market in. And then the last one is the final pricing. So some of the maturities within the bonds had oversold, others didn't sell as well. And so because of that, we were able to adjust the spreads and therefore also adjusting the yields. So for example, the 2030 and the 2031, and along with the 2035, we were able to decrease those spreads and actually reduce the yields by 2 basis points. On the other hand, the 32 and the 33 maturities did not sell as well, so we had to increase the spreads, increase the yield by 3 basis points. Continuing on my next slide, we have the order monitor. So again, the district went out to sell 10 million bonds, but received $19.6 million in orders, leaving the entire issuance 2 times oversubscribed. And so again, because of that oversubscription in some maturities, we were able to rein in those yields and get a better interest rate for the district. Continuing on for just investor overview, the 11 different accounts bought the district's bonds, the biggest being Bank of America and also Asset Preservation Advisors. On my next slide, we have the debt service schedule of these bonds. So as I mentioned before, the maturities range from 2024 through 2035. If you look specifically at August 1st, 2024, you'll see a $6 million block in that first year. So we were able to utilize the district's current outstanding cash balance fund to be able to prepay this loan pretty upfront. So on August 1st of 2024, $6 million of this $10 million loan will already be paid off. And again, we structured that so that we save interest cost savings for the district. On my next slide, and also my final slide, we just have a couple comparable transactions. These bonds sold within similar time of the district. Alamogordo School sold the week before. Their TIC came in at 3.8%. Las Cruces Public Schools sold the same week actually and came in at 3.7%. So it was a very competitive market, and the district's bonds sold very, very competitively. Again, we're very pleased with this result. As we mentioned before, that interest rates do continue to rise. The 10-year U.S. Treasury is currently trading at 4.5%, so it's always a good sale when you come in below the government's debt. I do have a market update in the back, but I'll pause there and see if anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions apart from the board or Dr. Cleveland? Okay. No questions? Okay, go
All
ahead.
right. Well, no, thank you. Thank you for your time and have a great meeting. And congratulations to the district on the very successful bond sale.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank
We
you
really
for your
appreciate
hard
it.
work on this.
Oh, absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Very much so. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we appreciate that. That's a good news. So next will be our report on statewide surveys. We'd like to invite Dr. Happy Miller to present.
I think Sherry Carver is presenting.
No. Oh, and Sherry as well.
Good evening, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board. We just want to briefly share with you plans for some upcoming surveys. Next slide, please. The PED has a history of having statewide surveys. They used to be known as Opportunity to Learn Survey, then the Youth Forward Survey. They are planning new surveys for this school year. There will be the student survey will be required twice this year, in the fall and the spring. The fall window is from November 15th to December 15th. The student surveys are required. The family and the staff surveys are not required, but we will take a look at the questions because we think they align pretty well with our the survey we gave last year for strategic planning purposes, and then see what's covered there and then what gaps there are that we would need to cover within our own survey. What is different this year is that the items, the administration platform, and the reports will come from Panorama Education. And Panorama Education is a national company. They are well known for their surveys, especially in the area of social emotional learning. Next slide. This will be for students in grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 12. You see the number of questions and the estimated time length. They are primarily on the scale from 1 to 5, but the state did say that there would be at least one open-ended question. We have some sample questions for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the categories: self-efficacy, self-management, sense of belonging, school climate, school safety, and supportive relationships, very much related to social emotional learning and student well-being. Next slide. Here are some of the sample questions. How confident are you that you can learn all the material presented in your classes? How often were you polite to other students? Overall, how much do you feel like you belong at your school? How fair or unfair are the rules for the students at your school? And then a sample open-ended question: what can your teachers or other adults at school do to better support you? I did link there. The state did provide some sample questions. We know they're coming from Panorama, and we have from Panorama guidebooks or lists of questions from them. And so I linked to you other questions from Panorama that could potentially be within the survey that we know they have open. And we used some of these questions last year in our own district survey. Next slide, please. For those teacher and staff student surveys, these are the 4 categories that the state mentioned: school climate, professional learning regarding social emotional learning, educating all students, and well-being. Again, this is optional. We will take a look at it, and if it aligns with our strategic planning purposes, then we might use it. We also know that we will need to work with our union to make sure that the staff survey is approved. These are the topics for family school relationship survey: school climate, barriers to engagement, school safety, and background questions. And this is the categories that we had last year with our student, staff, and family surveys for strategic planning purposes. Engagement and innovation was a big topic. You'll notice that wasn't in the state one. So we will need to look at having our own shorter district survey to make sure that anything that's not covered by the state survey, that we do cover it. But under safety and wellness, we had attitudes, beliefs, skills needed for success, support for mental and physical health and wellness, safe, respectful, and supportive school environments. And so you can see that the two surveys overlap pretty well between what we gave last year and what the state is planning to survey this year. So we will look and see where there are gaps. We do intend to have our own survey to focus on those gaps and then combine data from both. We anticipate we will have school level data from the state. And so we will combine that because we don't want to ask the students to answer the same questions multiple times for different sources. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Carver to talk about what are we doing? Because the survey is really, to me, the analogy is you're taking someone's temperature. It's like a thermometer. How are we doing? But we don't want to just take their temperature. We also want to do things to help support students' social and emotional learning.
It's interesting to me that our Character Strong curriculum has surveys, and many of the questions that Happy just pointed out, same type questions in those surveys. So they're check-ins with the students to find out how they feel about school. One's called a school culture survey. Questions like, I'm confident when I'm at school. How do you feel when you're at school? I feel cared for when I'm at school. I'm struggling when I'm struggling at school, I have someone to go to that I feel confident in talking to, those type of questions. So it's a check-in that our counselors and our staff can use. And when they see some questions coming back that, no, I don't feel confident. No, I don't have anybody. So they can take steps to remedy that. One of them that you've heard us all talk about implementing this year is the relationship mapping with kids, and it's checking in with kids to see how they're feeling about school, to see if they have relationships with others, and how we can support building those avenues for kids. So Character Strong is somewhat just right along with the same survey that Happy's talking about. There's also a student self-rating survey, and if you go back to those questions that Happy mentioned before, or those areas, same areas that's mentioned in the state survey that comes in the Character Strong survey. So I'm really pleased about that. We're on the same path, I think, as the state is in that respect. So at that point, I think at this point, we'll stand for questions.
What's your return response rate?
Well, we haven't started giving the surveys yet.
But traditionally, what do you get as a response rate?
On the Character Strong surveys or
well, any of the surveys that you do with students?
Our normal return rate.
Student surveys, the state student surveys are very high because it's required from the state. And so we look and we really try to support. So those can be above 90%. Typically, for like our strategic planning, high schools will have, I don't have the numbers with me, well over 1,000, 2,000 students. It's a fairly large proportion, more than half the students. Families, it can vary, but we'd be happy to get the numbers for you from last year from the surveys that we did and get the response rates to you.
I was just curious because the response rate will tell you, a whole lot about the survey itself. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Jessica Tyler, any questions? No. Any questions, Gary Tripp or Jeff Morgan? Any questions? Dr. Cleveland, do you want to?
Just to emphasize that one of the surveys is required by the Public Education Department. I know there has been some concerns about another survey, the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey. None of these surveys are that survey, and we are not administering that survey in our district. So some folks have some concerns about it that is not one of the surveys that we are distributing, or we feel like these will take care of most of that, most of the needs without being too terribly intrusive into families' lives.
That's good. And I'm grateful that Dr. Cleveland brought that up because, we had the opportunity to talk about maybe a week ago or so. We were talking about these, and I really appreciated that taking time to make sure that we're getting the best survey out to our families and that we're not being intrusive and all of those things. So thank you everyone for the hard work of making sure that we get good surveys out to our student body. So I think that's any other question. Oh, go ahead.
Can we see the surveys as well?
When they come out.
We can ask the Public Education Department. They provided us some sample questions, and I gave some of the questions that they provided. There is a link in there to the Panorama Guidebook. So on one of the slides, there's a link to a Google folder where it has, for every category, the questions from Panorama. And so it's a much larger set, but the questions will come from within that data set.
Okay. So
yes and no, we have not seen.
See the results.
We will be able to see the results. Yes. I don't know if we'll receive results by category or by question. This is a new survey for the state, and at this point we have limited information, but we'd be happy to come back to you once we have the results.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go into the Google Drive that's there, though, you'll see. So I think what Happy's trying to say is there's even more sample questions that they'll be pulling from. So you'll get a really good idea, I think, if you
So
go
for
and
each
take a
of the
look at that.
categories, there might be 5 to 10
Mhm.
questions there. And so there might be like 50 to 100 potential questions. Not that many questions will be on the survey,
Mhm.
but I doubt that there would be many questions that aren't within that list that I linked.
Yeah.
But at some point, after all this is done and all of them are administered and they're out, the board will get information on the results of that survey.
Yes. we
Well,
can do that.
I know we'll get the results. I just wanted to know if there was a way we could see the questions of it. That's all I was asking.
Yes, and you can.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's coming from the state, and so no one's seen. I
It's
guess
coming from the
every-
state, and we have asked to see the survey, and we were provide a list of sample questions, but
That's
we were
fine.
not provided a complete set of
All
questions.
right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me make sure I'm clear on that. So there's a pool of questions and there's sample questions. They will pull from that pool. So we don't know exactly which questions, but you can get a pretty good feel by looking at all the questions in the pool.
I believe so.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it. Okay. Our next report will be on our CTE building program update. And we'll have Patrick Martinez, our Executive Director of Facilities, along with Dr. Christopher Johnson, the Principal of CTE. And welcome to our board meeting, by the way.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. Like you said, my name is Dr. Johnson. I am the principal for CTE. Next slide, please. So we're going to give a quick update on the CIS welding program update, which is the current CTE certificate pathways that students are participating in. Next slide. So this fall, our CIS students are taking 2 C&M classes in addition to their 4 high school classes. They're taking CIS 1410 and BCIS 1110. That is IT essential hardware and some network administration classes. They take those classes Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. On Wednesday, we use that for course catch-up and credentialing at C&M, where I'm there with the students from 11:30 to 1:30. For our welding side, our welding 1350 is Mondays and Fridays, and that is an in-person where the students are welding with a C&M instructor in the C&M mobile welding lab. And then on welding 1005 and 1010 are online classes where they're learning metallurgy and as well as blueprint reading is what they're learning. And that is online. I'm working with them through Brightspace with that. And then on Wednesday, they are doing some course catch-up credentialing where I'm looking at their grades, both at C&M as well as at the Rio Rancho and Cleveland. So next slide, please. So our current certificate pathway students, we have 17 sophomores in the CIS, 2 juniors and 2 seniors. And then for the welding, we targeted all sophomores for that. So that is 16 students are participating in the welding. For our 2024 recruitment goals, we're looking at 16 welding students as well as 20 to 22 CIS for next fall. Next slide. So in the first picture in the upper left, students are actually observing the instructor demonstrating before they get into there and start welding. The bottom left student is demonstrating PPE that has been provided by Rancho Public Schools. And then the bottom right is a student actually welding beads on 4 1x6-inch metal sheets. And then there's actually a video, a 13-second video. If you, can you go back one? Top right, you should be able to click that.
Like the actual image.
The actual image? Yes, ma'am. And there you go. So what they're doing is welding beads across that, and then the instructor will rate it. Next slide. This is our CIS students. So we have 21 students in a lab with the teacher, and they're learning everything from IT essentials, where they're learning how to take apart computers, learn specific aspects of the computer, and then they're also learning networking systems in that class. For parent communication, we had our initial email in April of 2023 saying, hey, we're going to be offering these classes. If you're interested, please come. We had a meeting May 2023. And then on August 15th, we took the 36 students that are currently enrolled in that certificate pathway with their parents, met at the C&M Rio Rancho campus, and we had an agenda of introductions to key people. Dr. Cleveland, as well as other members of the executive team, were out there. C&M showed some support coming out. We went over the schedules, went over the classroom lab expectations, Monday through Friday. Technology, thank you to Carl Lepman. We were able to purchase all 36 students 21 HP laptops that they can use while they're at C&M. And then we offered questions and gave a campus tour. And then I will turn it over to Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Chris.
While he's getting ready to do that, I did have a chance to attend that parent meeting. It was absolutely packed. It was a huge room, and it was really great to see the interest of both the students and the parents, but the turnout was just incredibly good.
Thank you, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. So what I'll go over now is some updates for the design of the CTE building, kind of where we're at, some schedules. So I'm going to start with the design schedule. So we received our 50% construction document package on September 5th. And so we're currently working through comments and review of that. And as a part of that, we were able to, or the design team was able to put together early work packages for demolition and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, which are really key. That means they can kind of get in there, start demolishing parts of the building, see what's back there. And then as far as the MEP, able to order long lead items. So anything that might have a long lead item, HVAC, electrical, those are the ones that we're seeing. We're supposed to get our 100% construction documents end of October. And at that point, we'll get a final, what's called the guaranteed maximum price, or the GMP. And so that'll be kind of the finalized cost for the project. For construction. And then next slide. Moving into the construction schedule, so like I said, the early work packages, the cost proposal, so the general contractors already put that out to subcontractors, and those are due October 5th. In fact, they'll be holding their pre-bids at the CTE building. And then we'll review those numbers on October 9th and really look at the long lead items and get those ordered. And then demolition is scheduled to start early to mid-November. The overall schedule will be finalized at when we do the GMP. And some challenges that we're starting to see really are based on a few factors. Equipment lead times, like I said, and then labor force availability. That's going to be a big one. This is a large project with a large budget. But as of right now, we are currently on schedule to open in January of 2025. And so with that, next slide. We thought we'd throw some of the kind of design updates. I'll go through them quick, but you'll see this is the current site, but we will be making some modifications, which I've highlighted. One, for a parent pickup kind of loop, as well as a bus loop just to the southeast there. So those will be some modifications we make just to kind of help with circulation on the site. Next slide. This is the current floor plan. And so what I did is I broke it up, just kind of color coded it, blue being the administrative areas. The orange are all the Rio Rancho spaces, so the Rio Rancho Public School spaces for the high school, which includes the cafeteria, kitchen. And then yellow would be all the CTE classrooms, so those would be the shared classrooms with CNM. The green, the reason I highlighted that is those are the large labs. Those will be all the labs for HVAC, welding, electrical, carpentry, and plumbing. And then the gray really was just to show we're keeping that core. Those are the restrooms and the mechanical room, IT room. Next slide. We have a current rendering of what the front might look like. Again, these are still under development a little bit, but this is kind of a general idea of what that might look like. Next slide. That's the back side of the building where the labs are. So where those large outdoor space, you can see the large roll-up doors for a lot of those larger areas. Next slide. I threw in some interior renderings. So this is looking kind of at the main corridor, what they're calling the mixing chamber. And this is kind of where you see everything that's happening. So it's kind of, you'll notice the yellow is highlighted, and that the idea was to bring that from the outside in to really kind of tie the entire building together. Next slide. Another view of that mixing chamber, just showing kind of some classrooms, that open area for collaboration, things like that. This is a classroom within that, so kind of looking out into the corridor. Next slide. This would be the cafeteria, so kind of looking at what that's going to look like and where that's at. And you'll notice if you go back, they've started to throw some of the materials in, just so you can start understanding what the materials might look like in those areas. And so we've been having meetings to look at those materials and kind of figure out what's best maintenance wise, but also, we really want this building to be a staple and be able to stand out. So with that, we'll stand for questions.
Well, thank you so much, first off. And I really appreciate those pictures being put in there. It's nice to see some of the updates on the design. So Gary Tripp, any questions, comments?
Couple. You said 36 total students. Was there room for more, or was that a max out? That was the max for this year.
Yeah, that was correct. So with the welding lab, we were actually only supposed to have 8. But CNM revised it, and we're able to get 16 of the original 16. And then with the CIS, the 21 is the max, and then CNM had, I think, 3 adults in the class.
Is there room for more in the future, or is there room for growth in other programs? I mean,
Absolutely. I think in the other programs there will be room for growth. Once we open the center and develop those programs, we will see some growth. With the welding, I do believe we'll be able to expand that program beyond the 16 once we get into the lab space.
So the growth, we might see growth with students before the CT building opens?
We're hoping to see growth, yes, sir.
Great. And then the building itself, is it still on schedule, and is the funding, are we looking at any surprises yet? That would be my last question.
Currently, we are on schedule to open January 2025. Again, some of those challenges that we're seeing, we'll be able to finalize that schedule once we get that, once we finalize the drawings and we get that guaranteed maximum price. That's really going to give us the kind of our final schedule. But the nice part about the early work packages is we will be able to see kind of what we're in for, because when you start renovating a building, you never know what you're going to find until you start knocking holes in walls and knocking down walls. But the nice part is they'll be able to really get a good handle on that before we finalize the final price. And then again, being able to order those long lead items. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Morgan, any questions, comments? No? Okay. Noreen Scott?
Yes. What will be the full capacity of that building when it's completed?
It's looking around 560 to 600. That's that's just based on strictly design occupancy.
Are we offering courses in AI?
I don't believe so. No.
Is it
The-
your
the-
intention going forward?
The courses that we'll offer are digital media, and then, of course, the computer information systems, which is network administration. So I do not believe anything in AI as of yet.
Yeah. But I mean, as they go through that, like really those intro courses that they would take is that computer information systems, which is going to help to kind of launch them in that place. So that's really good. Okay. And Jessica,
Thank you.
Jessica Taylor?
I do have one quick question.
Okay, go
I may have missed it. I know you had electrical is going to be a part, but that's more for wiring in homes. Was there any discussion about the electrical car piece?
So the electrical car, C&M, when they build out their auto facility, which will be on the same campus, they'll have electric vehicle as a part of that.
Okay.
And so really this is electrical, like, wiring things, but there's
Right,
also going to be a photovoltaic portion to that.
All right. But that wasn't in, I didn't see that in the deck though, electrical car stuff. I just saw,
That'll be in the automotive center when
Okay.
when C&M builds that out. So that's kind of on their side.
and make sure you mention that because that's big. Yeah, that's going to be big. Thank you. Appreciate it.
What's the timeline on the building from C&M?
Currently, they're doing programming as we speak. We've been actually having coordination meetings between the CTE design team and the automotive design team to look at kind of constraints, possible entrances, and site circulation. But currently, they're still working on their programming.
Are they going to be doing diesel as well as electric and?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be truck as well as automotive.
There you go.
Yes, it is their full automotive. As of right now, it's their full automotive program. that they're
Perfect.
gonna be putting in
Okay,
place.
but you don't have a timeline or dates or anything on that at this point. Is it your thought that it's going to be like 6 months behind us or a year behind us or?
I really can't speak to it. They're kind of in a similar situation where, cost is always a big concern, and as well as just long lead items. I mean, thankfully new buildings are a little bit nicer because you can plan for that. But like I said, I can't speak too much of it because they're such at an early stage of their programming and just trying to get an understanding of the implications of their design.
And then Dr. Cleveland, you want to?
Just a couple of things. C&M will be here to present their bond priorities in October. And so you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions of C&M that you might want to ask at that time. I know, like everyone, they're struggling with, they're seeing rising costs, and I think they are thinking maybe the building needs to be a little larger, right, than original. And if they started first, which would be more important, automotive versus diesel. And so they are still working through the project. What we haven't seen a change at all is their commitment to build the building. And that seems to be moving ahead, and they're excited about it. But it's just things are changing. And one of the challenges, of course, we're all facing is prices are rising every single month. And so that is going to be a challenge for them, as I understand it, for their building. But you'll have a chance to talk with them and ask some of those questions as well. There's one other thing I would want you just to be aware of. Communications has been soliciting names for the facility. And I don't know, Beth, if you just want to say a word about that, but what our thoughts are, they've been collecting them, and then what we thought cabinet would review them and maybe come back with a list that we thought was kind of, a good thing, but we'll share all of them with the board. The board can look at all of them. And so, Beth, share what you know.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. We had 166 submissions, some really wonderful names. There's the Carl Leppelman CTE Center, but there are a lot of great names. So we do need to decide how we want to move forward with that, and we do want to make sure that we do involve C&M in those discussions as we finalize that with the board. So thank you.
And I want to stress again, what we will do is we will take proposals to C&M, and then collaboratively between both organizations, a decision will be made. So it will be one that we make together, but we certainly will bring our recommendations to both groups to look at. And I think it'll be really cool once we get a real name. I think that'll be exciting to the kids and the community to see the name of the facility. And so that's moving along. Maybe It wasn't the top priority, but it's a pretty important thing. So we'll be getting that information to you soon.
Okay. Any further questions from the board or comments? Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. Just, everyone's good to sit down, but just a point of clarification as we were talking, because there are going to be two buildings. I think it's important, just since we're on YouTube and such, that there are two buildings that are taking place. So we have our main building, which is already there, that we're renovating. And then C&M is coming in to put in that second building, which is our automotive center. And so we're grateful to work with them. And we hope everyone just keep bugging C&M and let them know that we love them and we really want that space. So we're excited to have that. So.
And they will construct that building. We will not.
Yes, correct. So, okay, we will now go to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, I think there needs to be a clarification made on the meeting minutes from 9/11.
Okay.
I believe on the business item, it states that the motion was to approve the changes to policy 609, but I believe the motion actually included, and the action included approving policy 606, 607, 608, and 609. So I would like to propose a motion to accept the consent agenda with that change being made to the meeting minutes.
Okay. Do you understand the change so that we can make that change? Okay. Okay. So you gave a motion with that too. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, and with the correction, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving into our business portion tonight, we will start with item A, to consider the approval of the memorandum of understanding between Rio Rancho Public Schools and the National Dance Institute of New Mexico. Dr. Kurt Schmidt, our Director of Fine Arts, and also Jesse Du Bois from Albuquerque Outreach the Artistic Director, is here to present.
Thank you, President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. We have a consideration of MOU for you between Rio Rancho Public Schools and NDI. This has been a partnership for a number of years, and I sound like Zeus up here. This is a really hot mic. This has been a partnership for a number of years, but recently there's been an influx of money from the state and appropriation from the legislature. So we thought we'd formalize things with a memo of understanding. This new influx of money also allows us to expand from 2 schools to 4 schools with NDI's help and staffing. We can do that to service 4 of our schools. The program is movement, dance, self-esteem, healthy living classes for our 4th graders at these schools. That's the target group. They meet weekly for 15 weeks. It's very energetic. You should see some of the performances in classes. They're incredibly engaging for the students, and very energetic, as I said. Let's see. Oh, and also we have the opportunity not only to expand to 2 more schools, but also NDI will provide some professional development for general education teachers to incorporate some of these elements into the classroom for movement. I think it's good for students to get up from their desks, move around. So this will help teachers incorporate some of these types of activities. So I am not an expert in NDI, but we do have Jessie Du Bois here from NDI. She is the Albuquerque Outreach Artistic Director for NDI, and I'll let her say a few words about the program. And I believe you have a program from NDI last year to peruse. So.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. You probably know a little bit about NDI, but I'll tell you a little bit more. NDI New Mexico is founded with the knowledge that the arts have the unique power to engage and motivate children. We know that the things that we can teach in class will teach our core 4 values: to work hard, do your best, to never give up, and to be healthy. And we do dance, a lot of movement, a lot of dancing, but we really do these classes as a vessel to teach kids self-confidence, tenacity, to be successful leaders in the future. It's not just about dance. But we do find a lot of kids in our classes really thrive when they don't thrive in the classroom sometimes. It's like a way for them to express themselves in a different way, just like you were saying about the singing earlier today. So we find that the arts can really target some different kids, and also kids that are really good at everything, like dance too. So we really enjoy it. We've been partnering, as Kurt said, with Rio Rancho Public Schools for many years. We're super excited to deepen our impact, and we're hopeful that we can continue the partnership and get into more schools and make it a bigger program. We love being in Rio Rancho. All of my staff that's here loves it. They always ask to come back. So I hope we can keep adding to that. you have any questions?
Oh, one other aspect I think is very interesting about the program is that NDI incorporates a lot of academic language into their classes. So they might, if the class is learning about perimeter, they might talk about perimeters, make a perimeter around this object, or straight lines or angles and things like that. So they incorporate academic language from the general education classroom into their activities.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board, Gary Tripp?
I don't have a question. I think I have more of a comment. I noticed that the schools that we picked, I just wanted to make a comment about, we have several schools that are Title I, where those kids don't get as much opportunity as kids like Sandia View. And I'll use that because that's my neighborhood. I'd rather see it at, if I had my rathers, I'd rather see it at a Title I school where those families don't get as many opportunities. So I'll just make that as a stress point if you would take that under consideration. Thank you.
We definitely target Title I schools at NDI New Mexico. So we serve others, but that's where we go first.
Thank you.
Board Member Tripp, in the past, there was a hard time finding some schools who want to be part of the program. And so Sandia Vista was one of those schools that volunteered along with Puesta del Sol at the time. But that is the mission of NDI is to target lower socioeconomic schools.
And the two new ones that we added this year were intentionally the lower income schools. So
Great.
going in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Morgan, anything?
No questions.
Okay. Jessica Taylor, Noreen
Wonderful
Scott.
program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Clune, do you want to add anything?
It is a wonderful program, and we thank you for the pictures. JC has a alumni of the program, but it is my only wish is that we could expand it to all our schools. All of them would love it. All of our children would benefit from it, and so that is my hope. Is that what we have is wonderful. We'd love to see it expand and have all of our schools part of it. It's just a fabulous program. Everything we know about movement, about that connects with the brain and learning and the motivation. You just see the faces of the children. I mean, you just see it on their faces, how much they enjoy it. So we thank you so much for this partnership and really hope that we can grow it over time and have more of our schools part of the
Thank you so much.
partnership.
Thank you. I know.
Speaking of alumni, Patrick Martinez is actually an alumnus of NDI. He told me.
Oh, really?
I invited him to do some dance.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to have to.
And I actually danced with JC a long time ago too. So
Yeah.
we're all over.
That's so wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
I love it.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Rio Rancho Public Schools and the National Dance Institute.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Noreen Scott. And JC, if you could take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler, Board President Galbraith.
Yes. Thank
Motion
you.
carries 5-0.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
We appreciate you being out with us. Okay, next we'll go to consider the approval of ITB number 2024-001-FAC, Moving Services and Materials. Michael Madrid, our Director of Purchasing and Chief Procurement Officer, will present.
Board President Galbraith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland has indicated this is a solicitation for moving services and materials. It's an invitation to bid as opposed to the RFPs that you're typically used to seeing. Recommendation is to do a multiple award to Innovative Moving Services or Systems and JP Moving. Both vendors that provided responses were vetted to ensure compliance with all the requirements, that they had the licensing, they provided the affidavits, and both of the vendors met those criteria. Innovative Moving Systems is out of Albuquerque, JP Moving is out of Rio Rancho. I do want to stress that part of our comfort with recommending both vendors is they have experience with Rio Rancho. They have experience with K-12. We've used both vendors in the past. If you look at the pricing matrix, which is typically the method or the base method of award, the pricing is very competitive. In between the two vendors, there wasn't one clear low bidder, whether it's on the labor portion of it or the material portion of it. And since we don't really have a scope of work, this is going to be an as-needed basis throughout the coming years. We feel that it's in our best interest to solicit an award to both vendors to ensure that we're getting best pricing. We'll compete them against each other, but it also does ensure that we have sufficient resources as we have a need for the moving services. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions from the board? Either side. Dr. Cleveland, anything you wanted to add? Okay.
This is Board Member Noreen Scott. I move approval of ITB number 2024-001-FAC, moving services and materials.
Board Member Gary Tripp, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Noreen Scott and a second by Gary Tripp. And then JC, if you can take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Tyler?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, you're still here with us. Next, we'll consider the approval of RFP number 2024-002 IT E-rate category, one RRPS area-wide network, and Michael Madrid once again will present.
President Galbraith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland, this is a very technical procurement. This requires a lot of expertise from Scott's team. And I'm just going to kind of highlight a little bit of the benefits of this solicitation. The IT department's goal is to improve the fiber infrastructure across Rio Rancho, ensuring optimal network performance, robust monitoring, and increased capacity. These upgrades will improve our capabilities by facilitating load balancing and increasing capacity at a secondary data center housed at the CTE building. It's worth noting that we are utilizing federal funded special construction opportunities, which will be subsidizing about 80% of the project. I want to stress that piece of it because when you initiate a procurement using federal funds, it does prohibit by procurement statute any local preferences. It doesn't allow you to consider the resident preference, the Native American preference, or the business preference. The intent when you have federal funds is to ensure that the vendors are vetted based on the scope of work and based on the evaluation criteria without providing, oh God, what's the right term? An opportunity for somebody to be receiving additional partiality as opposed to the other vendors, that it's strictly 100% on the scope and the evaluative criteria. For this solicitation, we received 6 responses, of which we had a total of 7 solutions. The responses were received from Cable One out of Phoenix, Conterra Ultra Band LLC out of Belen, Fatbeam out of Idaho, United UPN out of Albuquerque, and Vero Fiber out of Colorado. And the last submittal was from Wanrock. All proposals were evaluated to ensure compliance with the solicitation. All of them met the requirements. All of them were reviewed by the evaluation committee. We ranked the proposals and we took the top 2 and we conducted interviews with the top 2. And we also did what's called a best and final offer. And the criteria for the best and final offer is identified in the RFP. And from that information, we scored the proposals, and the scoring matrix is attached. Our recommendation for the board tonight is Conterra Broadband LLC under option 2. I'll turn it over to Scott if he has any more comments.
Scott, Conterra is out of Belen, New Mexico.
Secretary Scott, by the way, I appreciate you guys hearing me. President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, thanks for having me here. So Conterra is, I don't know exactly where they're out of, to be honest with you. I know that UPN's headquarters is Kansas, Missouri. I don't know where Conterra is out of. I know that we've been doing work with Conterra for 6 years with the district.
Well, they list a Belen address, so.
They listed a Belen address that might be where their substation is here in New Mexico. And I know that UPN also listed an Albuquerque address that might be where their substation is as well. But neither companies are really originating from New Mexico, is the best of my understanding.
From the proposals that get received, that's how the information is provided. I think they just have a presence. They have a point of contact that's local, but the the main headquarters is outside of New Mexico.
And that's the case for both companies?
I believe that's the case, yes.
What was the deciding factor? You said that you got to best and final. What ended up being the deciding factor?
So after we did the interviews, really the best and final came down to the scope of the project. Conterra offered us a fully managed, resilient network. And what UPN offered us was more of a dim lit fiber network, meaning all the equipment at the schools had to be owned by us, and they were going to basically hand it off to us. And the problem with that is we were going to have to purchase additional equipment. It wasn't fully managed and monitored. And that was a pretty big problem with the scope of the RFP. And so in that RFP, we specified a fully managed, monitored, wide area network. And there's a lot of complexity around the technical solution, but what Conterra offered us was a fully managed symmetrical ring. And they also added a lot of additional fiber throughout the city. Both proposals were competitive, but at the end of the day, Conterra met our technical scope for the project.
Thank you for taking the time to explain that to us.
Yeah,
I
of course.
appreciate it.
Yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Could I ask a question? What amount of time went into this? Did you estimate kind of the amount of time that went into this? E-rate's very important to us. It influences so much of what we do in our district, but I'm just kind of curious, what do you kind of, can you give me a ballpark on the amount of time that went into this effort?
Well, I mean, quite a bit of time goes into the RFP across the board, and Michael's very helpful. A lot of time went into making the decisions and that's part of the reason we brought both companies in for interviews, is because we really wanted to nail down the technical solutions and have a full understanding of what's best for the district. And at the end of the day, Conterra came out, but many, many hours are going to go into this and are going to continue to go into this. So what Michael had mentioned is that these are special construction funds. This is something we can do once every 10 years through the federal government. It's a huge deal for us because we can lay fiber throughout Rancho and set the district for a very long period of time as far as capacity goes. So this project is going to open the door for us to open a new data center over at CTE. So we'll have 2 data centers now, one here at district office, one over at CTE. That'll help us to load balance traffic between the 2 locations, and then have a very large pipe between those 2 locations. So it's going to increase capacity for us, but also increase resiliency and uptime. Like, we've had several fiber cuts throughout the city over the last 5 years, really, and some of which have brought down some schools, multiple schools, and one of which brought down the entire district. And so there's a lot of work going on around Rio Rancho, and part of this is to address that issue and to add additional fiber, add additional resiliency, have places where you can cut fiber and the paths will change and go other directions. So it's hard to say, to put an hour, rate to it, but from contractor and from network team and the IT department, it's going to be many, many hours just getting that entire framework built out.
A typical procurement that we solicit is about a month, maybe 45 days, depending on when it hits the board. This solicitation requires us to put it out, and then from the time that we issue the last addenda, we have to allow the vendors another 30 days to digest all that information. So that kicks it to double the time of a typical procurement. And then we did a best and final, which kicked it out, including interviews, which kicked it out another 2.5 weeks. So we're in excess, pushing 3 months on this solicitation by the time it hits you. So there were several steps that were taken into consideration. Dr. Cleveland, as you mentioned, this is a very technical, very expensive effort. We've hired a third-party consultant to assist us with this, E-Rate Central, and not only is there compliance on the procurement side of it, but there's also compliance with the E-Rate Central. In case we get audited, we have to make sure that we're in compliant to receive those funds.
It's a very exciting project. Thank you for sharing more detail with us.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any other questions from the board?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to grant the award of RFP number 2024-002-IT E-Rate Category 1 for the Rio Rancho Public Schools area-wide network to Conterra Ultra Broadband LLC under option 2.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Noreen Scott. And then JC, if you could take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Tyler?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we will now consider a motion to convene in closed executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights by the public body, specifically for the superintendent to inform the board about potential property transactions as permitted under Section 10-15-1H8 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act.
Madam President, so moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, and JC, can you take a roll call for us?
Vice
Call vote.
President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Tyler?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move into executive. Okay, we call this meeting back into order. And the board met in a closed executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property or water rights by the public body as permitted under Section 10-15-1H8 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. The topics discussed were limited to those identified in the motion to the closed meeting. And there are some advanced planning to look over. October 2nd, we have a special work session on Monday. The 9th, there's a school project tour and also a meeting that night. Also coming up, there is, and let's see, Gary might remember, we have a regional meeting that's coming up. Is it this Wednesday? It is this Wednesday. So we probably already have had to pay for our, have you?
No, I'm sorry, this Wednesday is for the.
Oh, this is for the
directors for the legislative agenda.
the resolutions that you're looking over.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's the regional meeting that's with APS, and so JC, I can send you those dates, and maybe we can get them onto our thing. If you want to go to that, it's at least close in town. It will be with Albuquerque instead of, sometimes we've gone out to Moriarty and stuff. We need to let JC know so that she can pay for the meals for that.
What time is it?
It's in the evening.
It's usually at dinner at 5 and then usually the program from the school.
And we went to that
or
one
the
in
district,
Bernalillo.
and then 7 there's some workshops. So done by 8.
It's in the Bernie Fossil building near Uptown, Winrock, that area. I would encourage you to try to make this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on. I think it might be very useful to hear how Albuquerque is going to be approaching it,
Okay.
if your schedule permits.
Okay.
I have to check my calendar. And
I will have to double check mine. So everyone else, maybe if we can just touch base with JC tomorrow or in the next couple of days and let her know for sure. And JC, let me know if you need anything as far as scheduling that, if you need any of the information for that. 5:30? Okay, so 5:30. Thank you. 5:30, and it's on the 11th, is that what we said? Okay, so on the 11th, I'll double check mine as well. So with that, please refer to your agenda for all the additional upcoming dates. Is there any questions on the calendar? Anything else? No. Okay, so then with that, our meeting's adjourned for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.